so this is a review on the Kuvings Whole Slow Juicer B6000 versus the Omega Vertical Slow Juicer VSJ843QS. So actually, I only own the Kuvings Whole Slow Juicer B6000. That's on the left there, and I'm borrowing the one on the right, the Omega, from my mom. So we purchased the Kuvings on the left to replace the older version that we had. It was a great juicer. We just wanted something a little bit easier to use because my wife is pregnant now. So that was the Kuvings. This is the Omega. So here are the points from the manufacturers. For the Kuvings, we got a bigger chute. It's easier to use, it's easier to clean, and it's running at an optimal RPM of 60. And for the Omega, we've got a standard chute. It's average ease of use. It's a little bit quieter, and it's got the lowest RPM of 43. So I'm going to put that to the test, and we'll find out. So here's how we assemble the Omega. First, you take the strainer, put it inside the little rubber squeegee thing, and just make sure it lines up in there. It's got two squeegees on the sides. And then you put that inside of the bowl. Now there's nothing to tell you how to line it up. I just put it in there. And then the little ball goes in the middle, and you have to make sure that the edges line up in between the notches. So here's the same thing for the Kuvings, and it's got you put the strainer into the squeegee, exact same thing. This one's got 3 fins instead of 2, but it's a little bit easier to find out which way to do it because you can see there's these red dots. You just line up the red dots, put that inside of the bowl, and then put the ball into that. So just a little bit easier. That continues over here with the lid. So the lid, you can see the orange notch on the Omega faces the wrong way first, then you turn it to match. So it was a little bit fiddly to figure out, but I did get it. Whereas on the Kuvings, you just you match up the red dots. So I'm gonna have to give that one to the Kuvings, I think. For counter space, you can see the Omega takes up just a little bit more counter space than the Kuvings, but in reality, they're fairly similar here. So this is going to come into play a little bit more during the cleaning phase, but you can see here that the Omega is hollow, the ball that grinds up the stuff on the bottom. So actually food will get stuck up in there, and I'm not really sure if it's quite as durable. So let's take a listen. Anyway, not sure, just mentioning it. Okay, so here's some demonstrations on just actual juicing of items. So this is half of a peach. You can see that my wife's doing her very best infomercial impression, and yes, it doesn't fit inside the Omega, but it does fit inside the chute on the Kuvings. So she's going to repeat that just to be self-evident of everything. So you can see that a quarter of a peach does fit into the Omega side. So you have to cut it up more. That's going to be true with all the rest of the items here. So again with the kiwi, and again with the infomercial impression. We don't do any leafy greens in this video, but for all vertical juicers, the manual always states that you need to cut up leafy greens, regardless of whether they fit in the chute or not. So for the best results, always cut up leafy greens and celery. One thing I should note is that the quality of the juices between these two is essentially identical. We have not noticed any real difference. So here we're using a whole apple. Fits just fine into the big Kuvings chute. One thing that we don't have in this video is citrus fruits, but there's actually a big advantage to the Kuvings on this one. Just like you can put in the whole apple, you can put in the whole citrus fruits. It's a lot better. You can see that half of an apple does not fit into the Omega either. So this was the same with the old version of the Kuvings that we had. You have to cut it down to quarters or eighths, depending on the size of the apple. It could take quite some time to do, so it's really nice to have that big chute. So another thing that you can notice here is that the amount of waste that's coming out of the Kuvings is more than the Omega, and that actually isn't, I'll show you the waste at the end, but that's because the stuff is getting caught in that ball on the Omega, and I'll show you that towards the end of this video. here you can see the quality of the juices pretty much identical. There's really not a big difference between them. So here's a cool heads up. My wife is doing the exact same recipe involving 1 carrot, 2 radishes, and 1 tomato on both sides. And we recorded these separately, but she just happened to be almost exactly the same speed on both ends. Except that you can see she's got to cut the tomato on the right hand side, so it takes a little bit longer to do. So even if you have everything set up, ready to go, ready to roll, this is just with 1 ingredient. It is quite a bit faster on the Kuvings, which is pretty cool. So it's just a little bit more preparation time on the Omega. Depends on what you want. So here we're going to do a loudness comparison. They're both pretty quiet, but between the two, the Omega is definitely quieter. So let's take a listen. So just as an example, I am right here and you can hear me talking over both of these at the exact same time. So here I am talking, you can maintain a normal conversation, and it's really up to you to determine how loud this is. So let's take a look at the waist here. That's the Omega on the right and the Kuvings on the left. Between the two, they are basically exactly identical. Same moisture levels, same fiber, same everything. Not much difference between the two. So let's take a look at the manual. The Omega has an instruction manual, how to put it together, how to use. Kuvings has the exact same thing, how to put it together, how to use. But Kuvings actually also comes with this cool recipe booklet. It's not a booklet, it's actually a book. It's pretty thick. You can see in the back here, you look up the ingredients. So radishes on page 49, you go to page 49, there you go. There's a recipe with radishes in it. Works pretty well. So one thing that the Kuvings has that the Omega just doesn't is the sorbet maker, and that's how you put it together. You just don't put in the squeegee and you use the blank strainer instead. And then you close that for the initial part, I think. Anyway, so you take some frozen fruit, you put it in the top, and you get sorbet. It's that easy. Same thing as juicing, it's just you get this kind of sorbet ice cream type stuff instead. So it actually tastes really good. This is kind of like a more tropical sorbet type thing, but if you put bananas in there, it kind of tastes a little bit more like ice cream. My wife is really digging it, especially, you know, when you're pregnant. You like those sweets. This is pretty good stuff. So for cleanup, we could take a look at this Omega here. Underneath, it has gathered all of that stuff that would have otherwise come out. So it's actually more moist than the normal stuff that comes out of the machine. So quite a bit to clean up. It's a little bit more difficult, even than the older model of the Kuvings. So it does come with just a regular kind of toothbrush type thing. It's straight and it's got a little point on the other end over here. You can use that to kind of clean out any holes or whatever. But that's it. Kuvings is a little bit more dry. There's not a lot of stuff left in the machine when it's done. It's about the same as the old version of it. So if you have the older version of this Kuvings model, it's pretty much exactly the same. It does come with a couple more brushes than the Omega though. Let's take a look at those. We've got the circular brush. It just fits around the outside and you just swish it back and forth. Gets rid of everything on the outside. And then it also comes with a brush. The brush is a little bit better than the one that comes with the Omega because it's angled. And then you get this little pipe cleaner thing too. So in summary, the Kuvings has a bigger chute, it's easier to use, it's easier to clean, and it's got the sorbet maker, but the Omega is a little bit quieter. Between the two, I picked the Kuvings. Thank you very much for watching.